kind of the best way to understand the CIA. It's a business service. When they overthrow a government, it's not really ideological. They'll overthrow a communist government, a left-wing communist government. They'll overthrow a right-wing nationalist government. They'll overthrow a secular government. They'll overthrow a government just sitting there playing solitaire on their phone, not touching nobody. When they overthrow a government, it's because there are some financial interests who are invested in the region, and that government is not giving them what they want. They want someone better for their business in there. And the CIA is like the special operations division of the corporate world. And most of the time, you're talking about funds. Most corporations are held as portfolio companies by big investors, big funds that have giant pools of companies as their little portfolio companies that operate synergistically with each other sometimes. Hence, you have the biggest donor to the Democrat Party being George Soros, who is a fund manager, has owned thousands and thousands of companies, as well as debt. Then you've got, and on the Republican side, it's the same. Everyone has a business interest. And the CIA is usually comprised of the aggregate distribution of the business interests who have placed the personnel to carry out the policy that helps those businesses. And everything else is window dressing. Everything else is a fugazi. I was chatting with my little buddy, my little research buddy. This is about a week ago, just 4 a.m., laying on my couch. I said, give me a list of 20 American bankers who worked as cooperative contacts, liaisons, or facilitators with the CIA as brokers or fixers for financing of CIA-backed covert action. Tell me the role of each of these 20 American bankers in CIA-banked bank schemes. Also for these 20 bankers, tell me for each one if a human intelligence asset 201 file was ever kept by the CIA on them. Cite your sources. So here's what the first thing it spat back at me. 20 American bankers whose names surface in CIA records. And again, I'm bringing this up. Look, the grand story here is U.S. Institute of Peace, and we're about to get really technical on it. But I just want all this stuff swirling around in your brain, your electrons lighting up, your neurons lighting up, as you think about why USAID is doing what it's doing. But we just listened to this Tucker Carlson clip about the CIA warning him not to go too far in talking about the role of banks in money creation. And if you remember, what he says here is, I was very popular on Japanese media. I was a columnist in Japanese newspapers. And then one day, a campaign seemed to be launched against me. My radio hits, my TV hits were canceled. The radio said, our advertisers, like Toyota, told us not to have you on today. And me, an economist, again, we're back to Confessions of an Economic Hitman. You see why these economists are so intimately involved in the CIA operations, these Larry Summers, Jeffrey Sachs types in Russia, in the 90s, as we've covered. And he says, well, why would Toyota, I get that Toyota, you don't want to have me on if it inflames Toyota. You need to make money as a radio station. And Toyota, I guess, advertises on your network, and you don't want to lose an advertiser. But we're talking about central banks. Why would Toyota not want me to talk about central banks on your Japanese radio station? And what he hears back is, well, Toyota actually doesn't have a problem with you, but Toyota was told to do so by Toyota's bank. So he goes, okay, but we're not talking about a local Japanese bank. Why does the bank have a problem with me? And he goes, actually, the bank doesn't have a problem with you either. The bank was told to tell Toyota to tell the radio station that because of the central bank. And that's kind of like what I'm about to describe to you here. Bankers and the CIA. David Rockefeller, chairman of Chase Manhattan. It's the same David Rockefeller, right? 1984. Oh, and look at that. Military background. Military intelligence, David Rockefeller. The banker Blobster. So before he became the head of, well, JP Morgan Chase is the largest bank. Harvard, London School of Economics, Chicago, Milton Friedman guy. But he started off in military intelligence and as a military attaché in the U.S. Embassy. The bank is closely associated with the oil industry. Well, the Rockefellers. With its board of directors to the successor companies of Standard Oil, especially ExxonMobil. And today it's the largest bank in the world. Largest bank in the United States, JP Morgan Chase. During his term, Chase spread internationally and became a central component in the world financial system due to its global network of correspondence banks, the largest in the world. Is it coming together? You go from military intelligence in a family inheriting the wealth of the Rockefeller oil conglomerate. What do you think the CIA was doing for JP Morgan Chase in the background that whole time? You think the U.S. State Department leaned on countries to allow the global network of JP Morgan Chase banks to get on in? Excuse me while I open up your butthole and plant a JP Morgan Chase branch there. This will become a part of the Economic Affairs State Department negotiations with the governments. But the power is that it's global. Global. What do we say about the CIA? They secure the global business for American companies so that American companies are global, multinational, dominant champions. A 1979 study titled The Significance of Bank Control Over Large Corporations. So that's going to be an interesting one. Provide an estimate for which large U.S.-based financial institutions had the most control over other corporations. This is exactly the waterfall I was describing to you at the beginning of this stream. Politicians are backed by individuals who control corporations who are controlled by hedge funds, private equity funds, or banks. So that's your waterfall of blobbery. Banks, hedge funds, private equity funds, publicly traded or privately held corporations, politicians, government agencies, government-funded NGOs, and civil society organizations and their private sector partners. This is the human embodiment of the donor-drafter class. Oh, he's also chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations. Rockefeller caused the Iran hostage situation. Kind of funny. Rockefeller in 1979 in Iran. The predecessor moment to Iran-Contra. Became embroiled in the international incident when he and Henry Kissinger, just hanging out with Henry Kissinger, persuaded President Jimmy Carter through the U.S. State Department to admit the Shah of Iran into the United States, precipitating the Iran hostage situation. Rockefeller traveled widely and met with both foreign rulers and U.S. presidents, beginning with Dwight D. Eisenhower in the 50s, man. Eisenhower is 52 to 60. At times, he served as an unofficial emissary, a shadow diplomat. Listen, the U.S. government didn't tell you that if you don't give us the oil, you'll be kicked out of the international finance system, but I'm an American banker, and I can just tell you what I heard from my friends in the government, which is that you will be kicked out of the international finance system, which I happen to largely control through my network of global banks if you don't give us the oil. Oh yeah, I'm also heir to the world's biggest oil fortune. Give me the oil! Or no money for you. President Jimmy Carter offered him the position of United States Secretary of the Treasury, but he declined. Like Tom Donilon, who was offered by Joe Biden to be the head of the CIA, but he declined so that he could keep running the BlackRock Investment Institute. Rockefeller met Henry Kissinger in '54 at the Council on Foreign Relations. He named Kissinger to the board of trustees of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. Consulted with him frequently with the subject including Chase Bank's interests in Chile and the threat of Salvador Allende getting elected. We're back to the Pepsi coup. Pepsi teamed up with J.P. Morgan Chase to sic the CIA to overthrow the country. Meanwhile, in USAID land, we have the Coca-Cola Company as the second largest global partner of USAID. Wow, look at that. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Damn. Kraft Foods, Bob Kraft. BP. British Petroleum. That was formerly Anglo-British Petroleum. It was when BP was on the verge of being nationalized in 1953 that the CIA overthrew Mossadegh and installed the Shah because they were going after USAID partner British Petroleum. Walmart, also another military intelligence family. I had a whole Walmart USAID 21-page USAID manual on their Walmart thing. Fascinating. I'm going to be doing a thread on that. Central Intelligence Agency ties. Rockefeller was acquainted with the Central Intelligence Agency Director Allen Dulles and his brother, State Department Secretary John Foster Dulles, since his college years. Let's do another. Let's see. Let's do some more music here. So the head of the biggest bank in the country is best friends with the head of the CIA and the head of the State Department. It was in Rockefeller Center that Allen Dulles set up his World War II Operations Center, liaising closely with MI6. Rockefeller also knew and associated with former CIA Director Richard Helms, as well as Archibald Bollock Roosevelt Jr., who was the head of the CIA's stations in Istanbul, Madrid, and London. Before that, he was a Chase Bank employee. And he was also friends with Kermit Roosevelt, the CIA agent who spearheaded the CIA's toppling of the Iranian government to protect British Petroleum, their British oil partner. Very nice. In 1953, Chase Manhattan bank head David Rockefeller befriends William Bundy, a pivotal CIA analyst for 9 years in the 1950s, who became the CIA liaison to the National Security Council, and a subsequent lifelong friend. In Kerry Reich's biography of his brother Nelson, a former CIA agent states that David Rockefeller was extensively briefed on covert intelligence operations by himself and other agency CIA division chiefs. So the head of the bank, which has major positions and control over U.S. corporations, is getting privately briefed on covert intelligence operations by the CIA. So do you think he will use that insider baseball knowledge to trade on positions in the market with the bank's holdings and their equity share in all these different corporations? This is the thing. I keep coming back to this, which is that everyone talks about the Nancy Pelosi stock trader thing. There's a rule, 10b-5, insider trading, right? Isn't that 10b-5? Yeah, my corporate law is a little bit rusty. But remember this, 10b-5 is insider trading. You, a director or officer of a company, cannot trade on that insider knowledge to give the market a fair shot. but there's no prohibition on insider trading on CIA covert action. So why does Chase Manhattan fucking Bank get to bet on the course of agriculture, copper, gold, diamonds, lithium, cobalt, oil, government contracts, defense equipment, every company in the world? 6 months before the market does. Trading on the insider knowledge of what you are prohibited by law from knowing yourself. An unauthorized person without a national security clearance or a special compartmentalized information access. But the head of the banks do. And they can move before the market does. Because the market doesn't know that the market's about to have their shit rocked. The market is about to be moved by the Holy Spirit of the U.S. military, U.S. Institute of Peace rent-a-riot muscle, the National Endowment for Democracy, street mobilization organizations, the USAID-funded Internews media onslaught. And you will find time after time, as we went over in countless George Soros examples of him doing this, where he's working with the U.S. Embassy in Mongolia, he's working with the U.S. Embassy in Lithuania, he's working with the U.S. Embassy in Peru. Meanwhile, he's got hundreds of millions of dollars of portfolio investments in these regions, making big bets on the world's largest copper mine in Mongolia, way before the market does. Because he's working with the U.S. Embassy on getting the company he invests in to get the rights to the mine. And then he inflames all those little pawns in the NGOs. The Open Society Institute descends on Mongolia and stops anybody else from getting the deal, holds street protests to block the Mongolian government from getting a decent cut of the copper that it sits on. So they can all go to George Soros's private investment fund. Harvard does the same thing, and Harvard is back to the banks. Larry Summers, who ran the Harvard Institute of International Development, funded by USAID, to privatize Russia's publicly held wealth and sell it off to Harvard and George Soros. President of Harvard University. And like David Rockefeller, he was offered the position of Treasury Secretary of the United States, and he accepted. Same shit. Not even a different toilet. Insider trading on national security secrets. That's how the Harvard Endowment does business, baby. That's how you have a $56 billion endowment. Never misses. There should be a prohibition on insider trading on national security secrets. But Benz, what will happen to the banks? They'll lose their competitive edge. Won't someone think of the banks? The London connection. Always the London connection. Oh, and now he's on the board of OpenAI. I can't shit on OpenAI too hard anymore. I still shit on them. But I'm waiting for Grok to catch up. Because this is a very powerful research tool for me. So back to this list. 20 CIA bankers. David Rockefeller. Now, David Rockefeller did not have a 201 file. Here's from the CIA's records. CIA.gov. CIA guest speaker. The head of the nation's largest bank. Welcome to guests from the intelligence community. Here's our State Department ambassadors. Here are Mr. Rockefeller's associates. This is the CIA introduction for their guest speaker, the head of the nation's largest bank. You don't think Jamie Dimon is talking to the CIA every other week? You don't think Larry Fink is talking to the CIA every other week? Larry Fink's deputy, Tom Donilon, the head of Larry Fink's BlackRock Investment Institute, won the CIA Director's Award. He ran the CIA as National Security Advisor. He was asked by Joe Biden to be the head of the CIA. No thanks, I would prefer to run the investment portfolio of BlackRock. It's the same job. I just get paid a lot more. 100 from Susan Polsky. Thank you, God. Thank you so much for the support, guys. Heart Mike Yabless from College Station, Texas. Bless to you too. Let's see how the CIA introduces him. Led the Chase Manhattan Bank since 1961 as president, also chairman of the board. Earned worldwide reputation as leading banker and spokesman for the business community. Leader in many public and private projects. Reflecting wide-ranging interests in international, governmental, civic, and cultural affairs. Does the CIA need to mobilize youth? Well, let's have David Rockefeller's charitable funds fund the arts and culture centers. Let's get all these young, impressionable minds, spin them up. We'll tell you who to vote for. We'll tell you what referendums, what to vote yes or no on. We'll tell you whether you want to go to war or not. Oh, and look at that. I didn't even read this. I swear to God, I did not even read this before I said this. For example, Civic spearheaded effort to develop Lower Manhattan organized business community for the arts. Now, why do you care about that, Central Intelligence Agency? International. He's got an interest in developing countries. Yeah, that's called New Markets for Chase Manhattan Bank. Supervised Chase Manhattan's business in Latin America, opened new branches in Cuba, Panama, Puerto Rico, and offices in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Instrumental in formation of International Executive Services Corps. You just fucking know this thing was ran through by CIA ops. I bet you, if you look up International Executive Service Corps, businessmen, volunteers providing technical and managerial assistance to private enterprise abroad. This is like David Rockefeller's, friends of David Rockefeller to steer CIA penetrated companies. I bet you. Japan-U.S. economic relations. Founder of the Trilateral Commission. Illustrious membership. Zbigniew Brzezinski. Member of an illustrious family. They don't talk like this anymore, you know? I want my CIA file to read like this. Mike Benz, member of an illustrious family. We gotta bring that word back, you know? Illustrious. Illustrious. It's such a dignified word. Trends in international banking and their impact on foreign relations. Mr. Rockefeller should use the neck microphone if he moves around the stage. The youngest son of late John D. Rockefeller. Oh, and look at that. He was a Columbia boy. Harvard and Columbia, plus the London School of Economics. Just blob my shit up, man, he says. And throw in a little Milton Friedman University of Chicago economics while you're at it, why don't you? Military intelligence. And regional development. Ah. I remember the days. He helped organize both the Council of the Americas and the Center for Inter-American Relations, working to maximize private enterprise contributions and cultural and intellectual exchanges in the development of Latin America. Oh, and then he also worked with our CIA director to overthrow the government of Chile because J.P. Morgan Chase's banking interests were being hurt. I guess that won't be declassified until later. Past president of the Harvard College Board of Overseers, just like Larry Summers. Okay. Let's see. And he's also here with the head of J.P. Morgan Chase's Washington office. Also comes to the CIA meeting. So that's one. Now again, David Rockefeller did not have a 201 file. Getting back to this Jeffrey Epstein thing. Okay? David Rockefeller was swimming in CIA shit his whole life. From college to World War II to the 60s, 70s, 80s. He's getting privately briefed by the CIA on CIA covert action. He's helping the CIA overthrow foreign governments like in Chile. He's setting up all these arts and business institutions for the CIA to play with, like pawns on a chessboard. He's directly brought to the CIA to brief the CIA, so the CIA is briefing him on covert action, and he's briefing the CIA on trends in international banking and how they impact potential CIA activity. But like Jeffrey Epstein, so it's favors for favors. The CIA gets to make use of all of his assets and portfolio companies and contacts and committees and NGOs that are funded by his Rockefeller Brothers Fund. And he gets national secrets from them. And he can insider trade on national secrets. But he is not a CIA asset. He was not recruited formally by the CIA. Imagine if David Rockefeller was running a international child sex trafficking ring, and the Justice Department gets a funny idea that they want him behind bars. The CIA says, oh, no. What will we do in Japan? What will we do in Argentina? What will we do in Chile? What will we do in Santiago? Can't you go easy on him? Can't you give him a plea deal? The Justice Department official then runs to the Trump transition team when he's being interviewed for the position of Secretary of Labor. Alex Acosta. And And he says, look, I was told to back off. He belonged to intelligence. Well, we asked the CIA if he was an intelligence asset. They said, no, we don't have a 201 file on the guy. We never recruit him. We talk to him every day. He was an indispensable linchpin of operations, but belonged to intelligence, not an intelligence asset. So let's see what it says here. So this is some more stuff that ChatGPT found. David Rockefeller is the chairman of America's largest bank, JP Chase, regularly briefed CIA leadership on OPEC petrodollar recycling. Hosted off-site economic roundtables for CIA analysts, and quietly arranged for correspondent bank pipelines that let the CIA monitor Gulf oil proceeds. How about the CEO of Citibank? Is Citibank the second largest bank? Biggest U.S. banks by size. Yeah, JP Chase is number one, David Rockefeller. Okay, so Citigroup is number three. So we have the number one biggest bank. How about the number three biggest bank? Citicorp's 1947 to 1977 time deposit structure for Saudi and Iranian surpluses, the petrodollar recycling scandal, was mapped in consultation with the CIA Comptroller's Office. So the CIA was running the petrodollar recycling scandal through both the number one and number three largest banks in the country. Central Intelligence Agency. This is on CIA.gov. To the chairman of Citibank. Not far from where I used to work. I was at 101 Park Avenue. That's where I used to work. 399 Park Avenue. Mr. Reed, dear number three largest bankster in the United States, on behalf of the officers of the Senior Intelligence Service of the Central Intelligence Agency, I invite you to take part in a colloquium with chief executive officers, tentatively scheduled for December 1986, right in the thick of Iran-Contra. No biggie, just a discreet little round table with CEOs and the Central Intelligence Agency. It's just so, I just love, whenever I hear people talk about China, and they're like, it's civil military fusion. The government controls all of China's biggest companies. I'm like, bruh, that's true. I'm like, yeah, China's state control over industry is pretty severe, but...
Do you respect Putin?
I do respect him.
Do you? Why?
Well, I respect a lot of people, but that doesn't mean I'm going to get along with him. He's a leader of his country. I say it's better to get along with Russia than not. And if Russia helps us in the fight against ISIS, which is a major fight, and Islamic terrorism all over the world,
right,
major fight, that's a good thing. Will I get along with him? I have no idea. It's very
He's a
possible
killer,
I
though.
won't.
Putin's a killer.
A lot of killers. We got a lot of killers. Why, you think our country's so innocent?
But China, the government, the killers, man, they control all the private industry. All the CEOs in China have to play ball with the CCP. Yeah, there's a lot of killers. You think we're so innocent? Here's the CIA colloquium with chief executive officers. Does anyone want to be a CEO who attends this colloquium and says, actually, fuck all that. I know that you are trying to do your climate resilience initiative in Africa so that we can control the development of the energy sector on the subcontinent, but I don't want to go through with your clean energy bullshit, actually. I want to keep doing my regular ass business. Would you sleep well that night after making a fiery stand at the CIA's colloquium with with chief executive officers? Do you think, particularly if you ran a particularly big company that was particularly important for a CIA operation to work successfully, if you moved in tandem with it and didn't move against it? What did Chuck Schumer say? They have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. The purpose of the colloquium is to exchange views on leadership, managing organizational change, risk-taking, resource management, and developing the managers and executives of the future. No problem, just the CIA telling the head of America's third largest bank that they want to develop the managers and executives of the future. No, thank you, CIA. I will develop my own managers and executives of the future. Why is the spy agency with a license to lie and plausible deniability license to commit arson, demolition, sabotage, black propaganda? Why are you trying to develop my managers and executives? We invite you to discuss your management philosophy as Citicorp's chief executive and address the key challenges you see facing the corporation. Why do you want me to tell you my problems? Why is my shit your concern? You just want to learn about what problems I'm having at the bank? The group would then like time for questions and answers, during which no doubt you will find out a good deal about our executive style and organizational concerns. We ask for a total commitment time of 2 hours, either in the morning or afternoon at your convenience. We've tentatively planned to fly to New York early in the morning on December 16th to meet with one CEO from 9:30 to 11:30, have lunch, meet with another CEO from 1:30 to 3:30, and then return to Washington. How would you like to get this in the mail? You're running Podunk Inc. And for whatever reason, the CIA says, hey, you get this letter. It's like my electric bill, my car bill, my phone bill. The Central Intelligence Agency wants me to have a 2-hour meeting with them so they can pitch me on their organizational style and I can tell them the problems my company is facing. We hope you will agree to take part in this colloquium, which is a highlight of our executive. This is not ancient history, guys. This is 1986. All right. That's not even what ChatGPT found. They then found that Citibank was working directly with the CIA Comptroller's office to hide money. Okay, here's another Citibank chairman. Boy, I'm noticing a pattern here. Walter Wriston. Let's turn the music back on. Walter Wriston, also chairman of Citibank, served as informal CIA corporate advisor. Citibank country risk memos flowed to the director of intelligence, and Wriston personally greenlit CIA taskings on Latin American debt workouts that hid covert aid transfers. Oh shit. So the head of Citibank is working personally with the CIA to hide covert CIA money flowing for operations in Latin America. And that's going to be your get out of Justice Department free card. Justice Department says, hey, that's money laundering. You violated your anti-money laundering, your OFAC, your KYC, your know your customer. CIA turns to the Justice Department and says, no, no, no. Ooga booga, one of us. Ooga booga, one of us. He belongs to intelligence. He's not a CIA asset. But he's safe from the Justice Department. He belongs to intelligence. High-stakes lobbying on behalf of other nations grows in Washington around aid and trade issues, 1985. Appeared on page 40. William Colby came out of the Central Intelligence Agency and started representing Singapore, Thailand, and Brazil. Reagan campaign operatives Paul Manafort and Roger Stone. The CIA flagging articles in the 1980s about Paul Manafort and Roger Stone, going from running the Reagan campaign to lobbying for Saudi Arabia, Peru, Portugal, and the Bahamas. What a crazy little world we live in, huh? Dragons have to be killed. Pretty dark for the CIA to be collecting these news clippings in 1985. How does a bureaucrat get rid of a legend? Oh, the strange death of William Colby. Intelligence for Business Leadership by William Colby, CIA director. The banker to Blobster pipeline. I used to run the CIA, but now I'm a business consultant. Just like Mark Milley. Mark Milley's doing this now. In fact, Mark Milley is at Citibank, isn't he? Or no, he's at JP Morgan. Is he at JP Morgan now? Yeah. Now he's a senior advisor to JP Morgan Chase. Oh, and he's at Georgetown. Damn. It's one big blob and you ain't in it. Money replaced ideology as main spy motive. Information boutiques, former government agents, CIA and academics are striking gold by selling guidance about foreign developments to business. That's so funny. A few years ago, an ex-CIA agent walked into the headquarters of Security Pacific Bank in Los Angeles and said his new company could provide useful information to Security Pacific Bank in Los Angeles. I have information that may be useful to your bank. He knew, for example, that Spanish officials were lying about the country's inflation rate. I was amazed, recalled Richard Kajelson, the bank's international economist. I thought he would be talking about people running around with Molotov cocktails, not economic affairs. Now such visits are commonplace as former State Department officials, academics, and CIA agents sell their expensive insights into the twists and turns of foreign economic and political events. Insider trading on national security secrets. I mean, I guess that's what Orbis Business Intelligence technically is. Christopher Steele's joint. Christopher Steele, the MI6 guy who created Russiagate with Hillary Clinton and John Brennan, what did he do after being at MI6? Started Orbis Business Intelligence. $100 from Witchery. Awesome research as usual and great tunes. A little help for your stash. Go dog? Is that dog? Thank you, Witchery. You guys are incredible with the sport tonight. Thank you. Boy, they don't. It'd be nice if they told me what page this thing was on. I'm looking for the Citibank thing. But you know what I mean? The CIA collects all this stuff as a matter of course. The CIA didn't collect anything on Jeffrey Epstein when Jeffrey Epstein was accused of belonging to intelligence? Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Intelligence operations. U.S. is beefing up its covert activities in the Christian Science Monitor. This is 1985, right in the heart of Iran-Contra. They certainly were. Clark Clifford, banker number 4 with the CIA. Clark Clifford, chairman of First American Bank Shares. His Washington bank secretly fronted for BCCI, the CIA-favored conduit that washed funds for the Afghan Jihad and the Iran-Contra. Senate investigators documented Clifford's role in keeping regulators at bay. Once again, not a CIA asset, even though he was the chairman of the bank that washed CIA funds for Iran-Contra and for funding the Mujahideen that spawned Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And then the CIA didn't tell the Justice Department because they were in on it. Look at this. The CIA said it used the bank as a transfer point. The CIA did its job and did it well. The CIA knew in 1985 that BCCI had secretly acquired illegal ownership of the Washington area's largest bank holding company, First American Bank Shares, but didn't tell the bank regulator. So the CIA knew that the CIA's big international bank, BCCI, had acquired the biggest bank in the Washington, D.C. area, even though BCCI was run by a guy from Pakistan and not headquartered in the United States. They didn't tell, the CIA didn't tell the Justice Department because they were using the fucking bank to run Iran-Contra and to run the Islamo-fundamentalist movement, the Mujahideen, to fight the Soviets. BCCI was doing money laundering, drug trafficking, terrorism, and weapon sales. But they were our terrorism. They were our terrorist groups, the Mujahideen. Osama bin Laden was our guy, baby. We loved him back then. Yeah, BCCI was funding, the CIA bank was funding Osama bin Laden. But Osama bin Laden was a good guy then. What, were we gonna not fund Osama bin Laden? Were we not going to set up a drug trafficking, gun running bank in Pakistan and then have it acquire a local bank in DC so that we could have him take the drugs on the Golden Crescent and move them through BCCI and then buy guns in the United States and keep the whole thing from the Justice Department and Congress and the American people? What? Is Osama bin Laden some kind of bad guy? Flash forward 2 decades later, the CIA is now back in Pakistan collecting the blood samples of everyone in the country through fake hepatitis B vaccine drives run out of U.S. goddamn AID to get the very guy they funded and put in that power position in the first place. Yeah, Michael Anton, well said. The blob picks winners in business and in wars. But I repeat myself. Once again, banker number 4, not an intelligence asset. No 201 file. Banker number 5, president of First American, the day-to-day manager of the BCCI cutout, handled placement of CIA money earmarked for Pakistan's ISI, which would be the same intelligence service that would bust the CIA in the fake vaccine drive. Robert Vesco, offshore financier. There's a lot of interesting stuff from Robert Vesco. Moved CIA cash through the Bahamas and Costa Rica shells for anti-Castro operations in Cuba in the early 1970s. The Senate Church Committee demanded his 201 file, but he did have one. Paul Hellwell, of course, the CIA legal eagle who set up all these offshore banks for the CIA, was the architect of the CIA banking superstructure. Then when he retired from the CIA, he became the general counsel of Disney. And he created Disney World by secretly acquiring all of the land for Disney World. The same way he went and bought up giant tracts of farmland to run CIA covert ops and training grounds and hillside guerrillas in Cambodia and Laos. He took that same set of skills to build Disneyland in Florida. Disney World and its tangled web with CIA ops. Let's see if I talk about Hellwell here. There you go. When Walt Disney envisioned Disney World, he needed a lot more land. Orlando, Florida was ideal, but Disney didn't just walk up to landowners to acquire his acres. Instead, he hired 2 notoriously shady men, Paul Hellwell, who ran CIA operations in the Eastern Pacific, Southeast Asia, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, and Bill Donovan, the head of the OSS, to acquire the land in Florida. With their help, with the help of the CIA, Disney could not only keep the land costs low, but also retain total control over it in perpetuity. First, to get the land as cheaply and discreetly as possible, the CIA's founder, effectively, the guy who created the OSS, Bill Donovan, and his law firm created numerous shell companies through which the property could be purchased. Same set of skills as Jeffrey Epstein. And he orchestrated a disinformation campaign to keep the locals from determining that it was Disney who was buying up the land. Otherwise, the residents would be asking for a lot more money because they could hold out. That's how you acquire 27,000 acres secretly. But how could Walt Disney Company maintain control of such a large piece of private property, 27,000 acres? That's when the CIA's, now they say CIA spy, but Paul Hellwell primarily did financial transactions. He set up Castle Bank and Trust. Is it spy, really? I would think of it as the CIA banker. CIA banker lawyer. Corporate lawyer, like me. That's when CIA corporate lawyer Paul Hellwell came into the picture. His answer: create phantom cities where the property was located, install a compliant government, and just make your own rules. Is that the most CIA thing you've ever heard? Is that not the most CIA thing you've ever heard? How do we retain permanent control over such a huge territory of land? Well, you declare an autonomous zone, you install a puppet government, and make sure the puppet government just does whatever you, the corporation, Disney, want in perpetuity. And if this little puppet local government decides they ever want to change the local tax rate or pass some local regulations that might hurt Disney's bottom line, we will regime change the mayor. And I got just the guys to do it. So the cities of Bay Lake were created, and hand-picked Disney employees moved in to control the voting. Is this not the most CIA story you've ever heard? To control the voting. They're rigging the elections. Made Disney World exempt from zoning and land use laws. And public money generated within the parks would stay in the business. But that's where you make the big bucks. Look, the CIA director only makes like $200K a year. You make more as like a first-year corporate lawyer associate. How does Paul Hellwell get to put his kids through private school? Not working for the CIA. It's what you do after. Taking your Rolodex, the people you know, your relationships, your little national security secrets you learn along the way, which are very useful in the competitive world of international business. Michael John Hand is the co-founder of Nugan Hand Bank. This was the CIA's proprietary drug bank for laundering the drug proceeds for the Vietnam War. Ed Hale, chairman of First Mariner Bank, Maryland banker who publicly admitted a decade-long stint as a CIA commercial asset, providing cover accounts for Balkan and Middle East logistics. 2015 in the Wall Street Journal. Balkans, so that would be like Yugoslavia, Bosnia, and Middle East. Oh, Riggs Bank. Oh my God, that's a huge rabbit hole. Anyway, we can go through all these, but what I wanted to show you is like, boy, this is quite a detour. Look at this, the President of Bank of America, the number 2 bank. So the top 3 biggest banks in the entire country are routinely working with the CIA. President of Bank of America, correspondence with Director of Central Intelligence Stansfeld Turner, shows Bank of America supplied confidential debt crisis data, and the president of the bank quietly facilitated Bank of America pass-throughs for intelligence contingencies in Latin America. So Bank of America is being used for CIA money laundering, covert pass-throughs in the 1970s. Stansfield Turner, head of the Central Intelligence Agency. This is the head of Bank of America to the head of the CIA. We're pleased that you and Mrs. Turner, your wife, will be attending the upcoming Business Council at the Homestead. You'll be in good hands. My wife and I have arranged for a dinner get-together with a few friends. Lou and Marge Foy of Bethlehem Steel, and Don and Verna Siebert of J.C. Penney will come join us. Just slipping this in my mailbox and sending it to the head of the CIA. Michael Antone says they're everywhere. Yeah. You don't get to be big business. Bethlehem Steel. How much steel depends on CIA muscle? In a giant commodity. Think of all the supply lines. Think about all the ways a foreign government could fuck your shit up. Think about all the ways a foreign government could make you millions or billions if they did the right thing, though, by your company. Well, how do you make sure they do the right thing? That's when it's good to know the CIA director. Foreign country doesn't want to import your steel? It's good to know the CIA director. Foreign company wants to pass labor laws or tariff changes or nationalize your mines? Good to know the CIA director. And that CIA director, if they do right by you, they're not making a lot of money as CIA director. They're making about as much as a middle manager at your company. But they could get a lot of money if you simply bring them on. Why don't you be a member of the board of directors at Bethlehem Steel when you're done? Director Turner. J.C. Penney and the CIA. This might be a good time to show you some Walmart stuff. If you doubt what you read with your own eyes, J.C. Penney meeting with the CIA. 20 from I Am Dane. Frank Nugent, co-founder of the Nugent Hand Bank, was found suicided in his car with Bill Colby's business card in his pocket. Yep. True. I ran this analysis of Walmart and the CIA. And look at this. This is like, look how long this conversation is I had on all the times that Walmart made billions after a CIA coup. It's crazy. It's endless. South Africa, Jordan, Lesotho, Colombia, Vietnam, India, Cambodia, El Salvador, Guatemala, Brazil. I went through 15 examples of the Walmart and CIA. Total windfall from U.S.-aligned regime change exceeds $50 billion for Walmart. $50 billion Walmart has made from U.S. regime change operations. $50 billion. So how much did J.C. Penney make? It's worth noting that who was coordinating the No Kings protest? The Walmart heiress. They don't want us getting rid of U.S. aid. They don't want us starting to pull out NATO. Walmart could lose $50 billion if we don't have the National Endowment for Democracy and the U.S. Institute of Peace. Oh, speaking of which, this is supposed to be the stream on the U.S. Institute of Peace. Well, listen, I'm having so much fun going through all these bankers. I want to go through a bunch of others. I'll just speed run this. Merrill Lynch, the chairman of Merrill Lynch, working with the CIA, all the way up to the chairman. You know, the president of a company doesn't run the day-to-day business. That's what all the lieutenants do. The president's really a rainmaker, you know, meeting with clients, customers, suppliers, government officials, like the CIA. Merrill Lynch Eurobond desk routed covert loan tranches to friendly services. CIA Director William Casey letters show direct coordination between Merrill Lynch and the Central Intelligence Agency. CIA, 1983. Don Regan, chairman of Merrill Lynch, he also gets a nice little letter in the mail. Hey, wifey, did you check the mail today? Oh, yeah, well, you know, we have the mortgage, the electricity, the phone bill. We got that news from your Aunt May. She said she's back from Boca Raton. Oh, and I got this letter from the Central Intelligence Agency, darling. Oh, let me read that. From the Central Intelligence Agency to me, the head of Merrill Lynch, the Honorable. Oh, babe, they think I'm honorable. Dear Don, in a recent discussion of our intelligence production, some of my officers mentioned that cooperation between CIA analysts, oh, I guess was he at Treasury at the time? Oh, yeah, I guess he was Secretary of the Treasury at the time. Well, that makes more sense. But again, the Secretary of Treasury is just like the Secretary of Banks. And he got there from Merrill, and it looks like they didn't provide the site for this. It looks like they cited something random. So I'll need to run this down, but What ChatGPT says is that there's evidence that Merrill was covertly routing Eurobonds to help CIA covert action. All right. With that in mind, let's now turn to what we came here tonight for. You guys having fun? Look at all these tabs, baby. We're going to get through all of them.